Most people aren't even remotely interested, but for everyone I know who's ever ridden one, dirt bikes become more than just a hobby. They become your life.
Yo, what's up YouTube family? Making you a video today that I've been meaning to make you for 3 months now, almost exactly 3 months. And it is my experience with the KTM 690 after 1 year of ownership. So I'm hoping the wind doesn't ruin this video like it does pretty much every single one of my other videos. It seems that every time I turn the camera on, it starts to blow. Whatever's up with that. But anyway, here is my 2018 KTM 690 Enduro R ABS, and I've owned it for like 15 months and 4 days I think now. So yeah, we've been on quite a few adventures together, and I'm just going to go around it and show you what I did to it, some experiences that I've had with it, and the pros and cons. So first things first, this bike has 6,811 miles on it, and that obviously as an enduro, that's across many types of terrains. I really do love this motorcycle, and not because I had to give $9,000 for it, but or $10,000, whatever the hell it was. I don't know, I don't care. I love it. This is an awesome motorcycle. It's a very specific niche that it falls in. It's basically a LC4 690 Duke engine in a dirt bike frame. You guys know that. You know all there is about this bike. This isn't your first review. This isn't your first video that you've seen. This bike got me back into riding dirt. I bought a KLR 650 because I thought that's what I could afford. And while that was a great bike, it wasn't a great bike for me. I needed something like this, and what happened when I bought this is it opened a whole can of worms. This bike is extremely off-road capable, but I would say its strength is really on the road and doing long miles. It does have fuel capacity issues. It only gets about 150 miles per tank, but you can get an under tank that fits right here where the airbox is, and that will extend your miles out to, I don't know, I think like 210. I don't have one of those. I live on an island. I don't really have to go that far. If I need a little extra gas, I can pack it. But this bike will take you anywhere, and it will take you anywhere fairly well. The only drawback really to this bike is that it is pretty heavy. They basically weigh 350 pounds with a tank of gas. I know there's a lot of people shitting their pants out there right now, but they do weigh 350 pounds. By the time you get some heavy-duty tubes in these things, you get them full of oil, full of gas, add accessories like aluminum handguards and things like that. You know, I got some Stegz pegs on there. You know, people put racks on them. All these sorts of things, they all add up. These bikes weigh 350 pounds. I would challenge anybody to show me one that doesn't, when it's all kitted out. When you get 350 pounds on the trail, it feels like 350 pounds. So you can navigate the trails. It has quite capable suspension. Those are 48mm WP forks. It's got a quite capable rear shock. It goes off-road very well, but when you dump the thing over, it is heavy, period. So starting there, one of the first things you want to do when you get one of these bikes is you want to come down here and shave the inside teeth off of the brake pedal. If you notice the side of my case, it's got a piece of quick steel right here. I know it's an eyesore, I should probably fix it, but there is 2 tiny little holes in this case, maybe only 1 actually. Tiny little holes in this case from the inside tooth hitting that when I dumped it over out in the middle of nowhere. You can see that these pedals are quite flexy. Matter of fact, you can see a chip right there from the last time that I dumped it over on a ride in a windstorm. And it will punch holes in your cases. You could get covers for them. They do sell plastic covers for these, But a simple fix right off the bat, right when you get home from the showroom floor, is to grind these teeth off. That will probably save you a tremendous amount of headache and a big ugly eyesore on your $10,000 or $11,000 motorcycle's engine case. Eventually I'll replace it. It doesn't leak, it doesn't cause any problems. I just put an extra big patch on there so that it would stick. Adventure Footpegs are basically a must. The bikes are wide, they don't have very much space for your foot, and your foot basically hangs halfway off the peg. The pegs stock are only about this wide, so you're getting basically like a whole nother inch off the end. They're also wider this way. In a perfect world, I would have got a set that was a ½ inch lower. It already doesn't have a whole ton of ground clearance. The ½ inch there wouldn't have made a big difference, but it would make quite a bit of difference at 6 feet in comfort for me. Not that the bike is uncomfortable like my KLR was when I bought it, but this would make a little bit of difference. So up to the handlebars real quick, I highly recommend that you don't just have the plastic handguards if you're going to go off-road. I put some aluminum Cycra Pro brand Ultras on this. When these bikes dump over, they smash really hard, and you want a good solid aluminum handguard on these things. Here's another pro tip for you. These mounts, the bolts, you can see I've got a couple little washers in here to mount the handguards up with a straighter profile so that everything fits better. You could get some fat, nicer washers for there. I just had these in my toolkit, so I put them in there. The handlebar part here is threaded. Get longer bolts and thread all the way through. What happens when you dump a big bike like this over versus a regular old dirt bike is it will pull the threads out of these handguards. With the nut on the back, it's not going to. I don't know, maybe you'll bend your bars or break your brackets, but I've been on rides where the thread stripped out on these things, and so now I get longer bolts, thread them all the way through, and then nut the backside. That's a pro tip. Here I put a Trail Tech taller riser on this. I'm 6 feet tall, and in standing position I'm uncomfortable. If you're not a tall guy or you ride sitting down on the street most of the time, it's not necessarily something that you need. I put it on there because I'm tall and I was riding off-road a lot. There's a small chance that I may take this back off of this bike because I mostly ride it on the street now, and I don't need the bars that high when I'm sitting. Going into the sitting, this is the stock seat on the KTM 690. Lots of people out there whine about how hard it is, all these sorts of things. I do not have that experience on this seat at all. It's quite cushy. Is it a KLR 650 seat? No. But it is not an uncomfortable seat. There's no reason to go just buy a seat concept seat when you buy these things because you saw it on some forum somewhere. 2 weeks ago, I guess, I rode 600 miles on this seat. I was on it for 10 hours a day for 3 days. My butt did not hurt at all. I was not wearing padded underwear. I was not wearing anything special. I was just sitting on this with a normal pair of polyester shorts or a rain suit and had no issues at all with the seat. If you want a softer seat, that's one thing, but the people whining about these things being uncomfortable from the factory, I don't understand it. I only weigh 150 pounds. I'm not a 200-pound guy like a lot of the people that ride these things, so therefore I have less compression. The seat feels even harder to me than it does to them. I don't know. Maybe they just need to toughen up a little bit. Go to the back here. I put a different tail system on it. I put the Euro-style tail with a little LED light that has blinkers built in. One of the problems that I had when I first got this is I was doing some pretty hardcore off-road, and this hangs down too far, and you can potentially catch the license plate and stuff on the original one. Mine actually broke down at the bottom. But another problem I was having is when I would land for jumps with all the weight, everything would slam and I was breaking taillights off. we're all stuck with this Department of Transportation garbage. This system is really sleek and small. Works fantastic. It's very light. Obviously, if you need bright turn signals in the back, it may not pass inspection in your state. It doesn't in mine, which is why there's holes drilled in it so that I can put the original taillights back in for inspection. It does work. Maybe my one gripe is that they put too many white LEDs in there to shine down on the license plate, and so there's a lot more white than there is red. That said, it's a compromise. I'm very happy with it in general. I'm going around the bike. You can see my Stegz pegs on there. I have a video on that. I'm actually giving a set away, so you guys go watch that video and comment on it so that you can be entered to win those. I currently have the passenger pegs on there. This is more of a street bike for me now than it is a dirt bike, so I leave those on there in case I need to give somebody a ride. They're fairly lightweight. I'd prefer if they weren't on there because I'm an off-road guy and I like to strip stuff down, but long story short, they're on there. They're quite handy. I did buy a big old bash guard for this thing. I've been riding mostly on the street, so it's not on there right now. Can't remember the brand off the top of my head. Spacing out a little bit at the moment, but I like the stock one. It's just fine for the street. It protects well enough for small debris if you don't live in a rocky area. So the headlights on these bikes really aren't that bad. I wouldn't say they're great. It's just a 35 watt halogen, but it projects a pretty decent beam. I've ridden it a decent amount at night. If you're going super fast, Baja style in the desert or something, no, it's not sufficient for that. But typical day-to-day street riding, commuting, it's probably just fine. I really haven't had much of a problem. You can, obviously it's a fast bike, you can overdrive it pretty easily, but it is what it is. I think it's sufficient. If you hit a lot of big jumps, which this bike's not really designed for, but hey, if you do, the headlight tends to pop off the pegs right there. About every big jump it pops off due to the fender flexing and the weight of the headlight. So if your headlight's pointing into the sky and you've been out riding it off-road, potentially the posts are coming out of the headlight right there. Tires. The favorite tires that I've run on this bike for off-road are the Metzler MC360s. I ran the mid-hards. If you're in softer terrain, you might get the mid-softs or whatever they call them. They handled pretty damn decent on pavement considering they're basically a full-on knobby tire. Probably my second favorite tires, honestly, were the MT21s that came stock on it. I put a set of Continental TKC 80s on it. The rear one, I did a big burnout. Go watch that video. I absolutely hated that tire. I thought it was atrocious. I will never buy TKC 80s again, for the record. I know people love them. That's my opinion. Take your YouTube flaming somewhere else if you like them. I don't care. I think they're shitty. I don't particularly like this Ken to Big Block either, but I was doing some street riding, and it works better than the TKC 80. It's just a harder compound, so when you start to lay it over, it starts to slide a little bit. Obviously, I'm probably riding more aggressively than most people, but it's okay for what I'm doing now, just cruising. Likely, I'll put a set of like Shinkos on it next, you know, KLR style Shinkos. I've already got the front, I'm just waiting for the stuff to wear out so that I can put it on there. But anyway, tires, if you could get a good set of tires for this bike, it makes the off-road capabilities much, much better. It's a world of difference, especially in the front. Being a big bike, it likes to push the front. The front end is too soft, so it pushes especially a lot in the dirt. So something good and aggressive off-road like those MC360s is much better than something like this TKC 80. I actually don't mind the front too much. It's not my favorite, but I don't mind it. It's fairly quiet, which is kind of what I'm going for right now. Coming to the soft front end, the stock fork springs in these things are super soft. It's fine on the street. It rides nice on the street with the stock soft front suspension, but when you start riding this thing off-road, it's a huge, huge hindrance. Spacing out the rate that I put on the bike right now, but I did put significantly stiffer springs in the front it was a little bit too much for my body weight. When I started riding on the street, it kind of started to hop with the street like a dirt bike. So I ended up putting one of the stock springs back in and one of my stiffer springs back in. So if I remember right, my fork spring rate at the moment's about 0.52. Don't quote me on that. But these bikes benefit immensely from getting a little bit stiffer springs for the front end, especially if you're bigger. I only weigh 150 pounds. You know, that's not very heavy for a bike like this, and it rides much nicer now. If you only ride it on the street and you're doing a little bit of fire roading and you're not doing any real tough off-road terrain, the stock suspension's probably fine. But yeah, if you're going to start hitting faster speeds and gnarlier terrain, I highly recommend you put some stiffer fork springs in the thing. Alright, so if you guys don't own one of these things, you won't know that there is no under-seat storage at all. If you put a Rottweiler intake kit on it, then you do have some storage up in front, but right now there's no storage space whatsoever under here. It's just not there. I hooked the little battery tender pigtail so that I can charge my iPhone into the battery, and it just stores over here. It's very easy to get to so that I can hook my iPhone cord into it and run it up to the handlebars. Super simple, super easy. Keep your phone charged, your GPS, whatever. You can see that my airbox lid is cut open. I highly recommend that mod. This one's kind of ugly because I was cutting more and more off of it to figure out what I liked. I ended up in this little configuration here, which gives it adequate airflow, but when the water comes in from the top of the bike, like in a rainstorm or when you're washing it, it doesn't drop down onto the filter. So just cut off the back part of this so your bike gets a little bit more airflow. It runs a little bit better off the bottom. And I cut this open, and I actually was storing my registration in that hole. You can just slide it in there and see it goes over top. You're not going to lose it. So here's your storage if you open your airbox. But anyway, I do highly recommend that. I'm gonna, now that I know the way I want it, I have a new one of these. I'm gonna cut it the way I want it, and it'll keep out the water. I have a Kev's O2 controller mounted down here. What that does is makes it run a little bit smoother off the bottom. Tricks the ECU into thinking that the fuel is richer, or it does make the fuel richer probably. You've got your fuses down here. If anything happens, you know, there's some spares, and you just pull them out and see which one's blown. Obviously you won't have the manual, but if you're stranded somewhere, you can have access to that. The other thing that's really important to know about these bikes, and I have videos on this, I have videos on everything that I'm showing you guys, is behind this side panel. If you look down in there, right off of my fingertip, there's an inline fuel filter right there. That little bugger needs to be changed from time to time because it gets clogged up and it will leave you stranded. It also makes the bike bog, fall on its face, so if you go off a jump and it's got dirt in it or whatever, you're likely to go over the handlebars. It's a pain in the ass to get to. I'm not going to explain it right now, but you can get in there and you can change it in the field if you need, or if you're stranded, if it leaves you stranded, you can just leave it out and reconnect it, get rid of it. I rode it for quite a while without one in there. My 350 doesn't actually have one in it. I'm not recommending that, so don't get all internet forum on me and on your high horse, but I'm trying to give you guys field fixes for if you're out in the middle of nowhere and your unreliable KTM gives up on you. That's the KLR crowd saying that kind of stuff. So all it is the fuel filter gets clogged because nobody ever changes them because they don't know it exists. So I don't know, maybe 35 hours or something, change that thing out. They're like $3 or something. Carry a spare with you if you're going on a long trip, whatever. That's a fix. So some fodder for the KTMs or unreliable crowd. I did have 2 warranty issues with this bike. Very, very simple ones. My flasher relay switch went out. KTM covered it, no problems. Just my blinker stopped working, and maybe something else, maybe the tail light. They took care of that, no problem. The other thing is the post here where the starter connects to the battery. that broke internally, and so it wouldn't make connections to start the bike. So the fix in the field, if that happens to you guys, is you can hold the battery post to the side so that it makes a connection inside the starter and you can start your bike. I literally rode it like that for months. KTM warrantied that, no problem. They just wanted to make sure that I wasn't down there futzing around. I have no idea if a stick hit it or what happened, but something caused it to break. Maybe it was just a weak solder from the factory. I don't know. Going back to the wheels here real quick, I do run dual Rimlocks. Big bike, under a lot of braking force, I was seeing my valve stems turning, and so I'm running dual Rimlocks in the 690. I have these NOMar wheel weights to balance the wheels. They work fantastic. I don't have those in the rear at the moment. I have limited resources on the island, so I went and got a 2-ounce fishing weight and cut it with a saw and stuck it on there and wired it to my spokes, put some tape on there. So that's kind of janky because I didn't have enough NOMar weights. I will fix that in the future, but the wheel is perfectly balanced, so I don't really care. In the rear of this bike, I might actually only have a single rim lock. That one seems to be fine. You can see my valve stem is straight. The rear tends to skid or anti-lock before the valve stem spins, but the front, with all the load and inertia coming down on it when you're braking on the street, it was starting to slip. So if you're a total newbie to the bike, when you turn on the display, it comes on, you can hear the fuel pump fire up, and hopefully there's not any glare on this. You have a temperature gauge right here, you have a clock, and your odometer. Nice big readout for your miles per hour. It's very easy to see. It can be converted to a metric or standard. If you hit the mode button over here, you got a trip 1, a trip 2, and your gear selector. I leave it in the gear selector most of the time, so I'm not starting at stoplights in 3rd gear. If you want to reset your trip meters or whatever, you can just hit the set button, and so when you're at the gas station, you just hold set. That also resets the fuel light when it tells you you're running out of fuel. Very simple. These other buttons, you hold them in combinations to do other types of things. The manual can tell you all about that, but that is the basic display. The bike hits rev limiter, I think, at 8,500 RPMs. I don't know. I'm trying not to look at the tach when I'm at 8,500 RPMs, but I'm pretty sure it's 8,500 RPMs. It's a very, very strong rev limiter. It's bah, 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 bah. I'm on it quite a bit. I would say the bike runs best between 35 and 4 when you're lugging it around town. If you get it around 3, it's a little bit too chuggy. It's not like a KLR where you can ride it from 2 to 3 and it's real smooth. It's a different bore and stroke than the KLR. It's a little bit revier engine, so it doesn't really like to run around 3. There is an exception to that. If the bike is weighted down, I don't weigh very much. You guys are probably sick of hearing me say that, but if you're a 230 pounder, or if I have somebody on the back, or I have my saddlebags on it, it will ride around 3,000 RPMs much better. The weight puts more load on the engine, and so it pulls better. It gets too chuggy if the bike is too light around 3,000 RPMs. If you want to turn your ABS off, actually this is very important too before I turn this video away from here, just hold this button next to the ABS light, and when it blinks like that, your ABS is off. If you ride these freaking things off-road, you have to turn the ABS off or you're going to die. You will not stop when you're on slippery terrain. The wheel will it'll just do its little ABS thing and you won't stop. So if you're going off-road, make sure that you turn this off, or buy the dongle and keep it off permanently so that you don't forget when you go out off-road. It's a pretty sketchy situation, you guys. Okay, to the other parts of the handlebars, you can see when I put my hand guards on, I cut the balls off so that they wouldn't hit. It was kind of an issue at the time. I don't know, I've moved my lever since or whatever, but I don't mind it. I do have the ProGrip foam rally grips on here. I put these on I don't know, a while after I got it, just kind of for some road comfort, just something a little softer, thicker to hold on to. You can see I got my grip donuts on the inside. If you're getting real aggressive off-road and your thumb comes in here, it's more so on regular grips, but those things will protect you from hitting your controls, and it doesn't flop around. A lot of time when I ride grip donuts, they end up out in the middle of the grips because you're just kind of all over the place hitting jumps, and so it's actually better to have them on the inside. It keeps mud from getting inside the throttle and things like that too, so that's kind of a pro tip for you guys as well. It's just a buffer from the controls for your thumb without it getting in the way of your hands the rest of the time. You can see I've got just this one little mirror on the bike. I don't like mirrors when I stand up. They're up in my face. If I'm going on a long road trip, or like when I was refereeing for the race, I put bigger mirrors on there so that I could watch athletes in my rearview mirror and things like that. But in general, I keep my head on a swivel looking for cars. I just use this little dual sport mirror. It's actually a bicycle mirror, and I can fold it in and down. And so when I go off-road, you can see in my videos on my 350, I just slide that thing down like that and put it underneath the cable. It disappears. I got no mirrors and crap in my way to break my wrist on or stab me in the face or catch on tree branches. It's just out of the way, and when I get back on the road, I can pull it up, I can adjust it wherever I want. You can really see behind you if you throw it out there, but it gets in the way a little bit. But you can adjust it and find your place. A lot of the other mirrors are fixed. I've had people say that, oh, this other mirror is better than that. No, it's not. This is the best one because this one moves all over the place and you can adjust it so you can actually see out of it. It's a Zeffel bicycle mirror. Okay, so future plans for this bike. I am going to get a different exhaust. This exhaust is great. It's, you know, nice and quiet, all that. It looks nice. It doesn't rust out or anything. Congratulations. But it's got that big ass catalytic converter right down in here, and it gets super hot, and these things are freaking scorching hot all the way out to the tip. There's so many times where I was just standing next to the bike after I got off it and just bumped a finger on it and fried myself. Eventually I learned after I got fried by it 10 times, but they get really, really hot and the stainless holds the heat. It's crazy. The other thing is it's a little restrictive. It's not letting this bike breathe well enough, and with the airbox open, I'm wanting more power out of this bike now. I know it's got plenty of power. I'm not trying to get all ego about that, but I want more power out of this bike now, especially now that I'm riding that two-stroke and it's super fast. I get on this thing and it's a little too sluggy off the bottom for me. So I'm going to get a pipe for it to help open it up a little bit, and that will make it a little bit snappier off the bottom, just like the air filter did. I'm totally confident in that. So my future plans for this thing are to get a pipe for it. I'm also going to build a trailer hitch for it because this is my car, and I'm going to start towing my motocross bike with it. Might sound goofy to some of you guys, but hey, it's my life. I'm going to do what I want. So I'm going to fabricate a system so that I can tow a motocross bike behind it, so you guys will get to see that. And it's pretty cool. I'm not going to buy a car. I don't want to buy a truck. This is my vehicle. Alright guys, so that was a pretty long video. I could cover more. If you guys have questions, put them down below. But just wanted to give you my experiences with this bike after owning it for a year. I'm still extremely happy with it. Every once in a while, if I'm feeling like, well, maybe it's not the perfect bike, then I ride it, and it is the perfect bike. This bike is fantastic for me. If you're looking to buy one of these, I would say if you ride off-road most of the time, you don't plan on carrying any passengers, get a 500 EXC. There's more accessories available for them. They're cheaper. The drawback is if you're going to be on the pavement and you're doing a long trips with it, the service intervals are more. They're buzzier on the road than the 690s. Off-road, you can't compare the two bikes. The 690 is inferior to the 500 EXC off-road, period. If you're mostly on the road, you're commuting, you're doing long trips, but you needed a good, capable off-road bike, the 690 is a unicorn. It's awesome. If you're off-road most of the time and you want to commute some on the road, the The 500 EXC is fantastic for that. If you guys don't know, I do have a 350 EXC. I love ripping the thing around town. It feels really, really fun, but I don't really want to ride it for any significant distances. It's not that it's really that bad. It goes plenty fast. It's just small. It just doesn't feel as planted to the ground. It won't haul as much gear. I mean, you can put big bags and stuff on them, but you know, you can put racks on the 690. The suspension setup, it's a much stiffer rear end than the off-road bikes, the EXCs. So really weigh what you're going to do with the bikes and try and make the best decision as possible based on where you're going to be, and be realistic about it. If you're not an off-road guy but you like adventure, I would say get the 690. If you're an off-road guy and you're probably going to be off-road on it most of the time, get the 500 EXC. You know, if you're going to haul passengers though too, you have to keep in mind that the 500 just isn't for that. But two totally different bikes. That's why I own basically both. And yeah, if you use this bike, what it's intended for, it's absolutely incredible. I love it. I have not done the first service on it yet. It's got 6,800 miles. The service is at about 6,000 miles. I do feel like there is a little tiny bit of lifter noise, so as soon as I have the time, I'm going to do a valve adjustment. But other than that, this thing's been rock solid. I'm super pleased with it. I love it. I can't wait to ride it more in the future. And yeah, super awesome. I always run ethanol-free gas in it. You guys probably don't have options to that. I live on the water. We have access to ethanol-free gas. It gets much better gas mileage and it runs better if you have ethanol-free gas. But I also run a little bit of seafoam in the gas just to keep the engine clean. I do just a couple ounces to just keep it cycling through at all times. Maybe that's why, you know, it hasn't had any more lifter noise in the past, but yeah. So that's my tips. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said, if you have anything that you need to know, comment down below and I will do my best to answer those questions for you. YouTube's comment system kind of sucks. Also look down below. I'll put some links to some other videos that I mentioned in there. Do go sign up for my Stegz Giveaway. Steg pegs are cool. I'll let you watch that video. Yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.